Good day. Yeah, happy new week. um, yeah, I just wanted to carry on a little bit from talking about acceptance last week. And really, because there's so many different layers to acceptance. Um, And when we don't accept what's going on, whether it's outside of ourselves or inside ourselves, then, we're just finding it a lot harder to self-regulate. There's always going to be a barrier there. So another self-acceptance idea is that when you try and meditate, quite often there may be some distracting sounds or, just things that can happen. It could be even a visual thing can kind of like put you off. There can be a feel of unease sometimes, and then we get really, really frustrated. And there's another form of acceptance that I wanted to discuss with you, and that is when you're tired, when you're sleep deprived, you definitely see the world in a different way. When we're sleep deprived, we don't have our rational mind. When we're sleep deprived, it's a lot easier to fall onto the negative. So our brains are wired negatively. And that was back in the day to keep us safe from predators. We had to be a little bit suspicious. We had to kind of work out what something might be, and we would always err on the negative to keep us safe. So an example would be, you see something on the ground ahead of you, and it looks like it could be a snake. It could also be a stick. But because it could be a snake, your brain is more wired towards the fact it could be a stick. Because, of course, sorry, it could be a snake because, of course, it's going to try and keep you safe all the time. So we are wired that way. And so when we're tired, it's a lot easier to fall into the negative, always. So it takes a lot more energy to kind of become more positive. So that in itself can get really frustrating. But what's really good about it is that once you understand that that everything is kind of mechanical, everything has a knock-on effect in your body and your mind, and then of course your outer world, because however you present yourself is in your outer world. So if you're tired, for example, your negative self-talk, which is inevitable, will then maybe come out to the person that that's in your surroundings. Usually if it's a loved one or someone that's sharing a house with, they're going to get it the most, because we do that to the people closest to us. And what's interesting is that when you become more self-aware, you start to self-regulate more. And that's really through meditation and mindfulness. I talked about a little bit of a difference between the two last week or the week before that. But when you become more self-aware, you then start to notice when you're doing these things. So let's just go back to that idea of being tired. So you wake up and you're sleep deprived. So different tired to a physical tired, where you've just been doing too much exercise, or rushing to get somewhere, or you've been using the same muscles all the time. That's a different kind of physical exercise. We're talking about mentally tired time, and that's when you're sleep deprived. You haven't had enough hours of sleep, so your rational mind is not to be trusted so much. And we talked about it's geared towards the negative, so you've got to try and be more positive. It's going to take more work. So what's good about this, though, is that when you start meditating more and you become more self-aware, you then start noticing, oh, that was a really negative thought on one of those tired days. Or, oh, that was a really negative way to talk to my friend or partner. And you start to notice it more. And it can be quite amusing sometimes. It's quite liberating. It's like, oh my God, it's okay because it's just because I'm tired. It's kind of not excusing it, but you're far more aware, and therefore you might be a little bit less kind to yourself, if that makes sense. Rather than kind of, beating yourself up about something that's frustrating you, or let's just talk about meditation. It could be that, oh, it's not working, my monkey mind, oh, and it all tumbles on top of you and you fall into this spiral. And it's so much harder to climb out of when you're tired. But it's really good to notice it. And to know when you notice it that you are also becoming a little bit more self-aware. And that's a really good thing. The meditation's starting to work. You're becoming more self-aware. You're noticing your moods. You're noticing the way that you respond. And I come back to this quite a lot with meditation. The whole idea of behind meditation is so that we can learn to respond rather than react. So the point about all of this, me talking about when you're tired, is learning to respond rather than react. So when we're tired, we can be brutal on ourselves. We have a lot of negative self-talk, and we can also take it out on others. But when we start to notice we're being like that, we might just start being a little bit more careful that particular day and hearing the talk and go, oh, okay, it's because I'm tired. Right, I'm going to try really hard and take a beat before I respond in a certain way. So it's quite funny. I actually had an experience myself a few days ago. I was distracted in the night, woken up, and I was so tired the next day, and I was really, irritable and frustrated. And I noticed how negative I was being to myself, and then to my partner. And it was only during a moment of reflection in the shower that I thought, oh, hang on a minute. Yes, of course I'm being like that. It's because I'm tired. It's okay. And just finding the levity of that realization was enough to kind of put me back in a positive spin and just go, oh, it's okay. Let's not beat myself up. Now, the other good thing about meditation is not just building the self-awareness, but when you are sleep deprived, if you can meditate throughout the day, so if you can't get a big chunk of time, just kind of do it in bite-sized pieces, that can really help not replace your sleep, but it can definitely give you more energy. It can kind of rest your mind for a while. It can give you a little bit of extra kick to get through the rest of the day. So think of that as a rescue package. So when you have a sleep deprived time, you can save yourself. You can make it easier for yourself, as long as you take some time out to try and meditate. Okay. So that was one of the acceptance things I wanted to go over. But the other thing that's really interesting, I find, is that we've talked a lot about thoughts before. When you get a thought creeping up during meditation, a random thought will come in just when you think you're following the breath, and then suddenly this thought comes in. There are two different strands of thought, and one is I'd like to call it more of a kind of domestic thought. So that could be something like, oh, I forgot to turn the washing machine off before I did this meditation, or oh, I meant to get some oat milk from the shops and I forgot it, or oh, I wonder what time blah blah's coming home, or oh, I shouldn't have said that thing to whoever it was. So that to me is a kind of domestic thought. But there's another type of thought that can come in to your meditation once you've been practicing a while, or maybe not. You might be lucky it might happen sooner. But that is one of clarity. So when we have a clarity, a clear mind, sometimes we'll get this thought that might come in, and it could be something like, well, we call it a brainwave. Funnily enough, it actually is a brainwave. It is waves in your brain that are working in a different way. But it might be something that's helpful to you. And it is, non-domestic. So it might be something like, oh, maybe if I do that presentation in a different way, or you've been looking for a different way to. Sorry, I've just got to move this laptop a bit. You've been looking for a way to present an idea. Let's just say that you've been looking for a way to present an idea, and you're sitting meditating, and it could be a bright color that comes into your mind or something like that, or it could be an image and you think, gosh, that would be perfect for the backdrop for this presentation. That kind of thought. So it's a clear, useful thought. Or it might just explain something, It could be something you've been struggling with, and this clear thought might be something that comes really apparent that it was your ego that you were attaching too much attention to. So there's a difference between these thoughts, and when you're meditating, you might start to notice the difference between these two realms of thought. So when you're meditating and you've got these thoughts coming in, the domestic thoughts, as I say, you'll know anyway, and it's just, you come back to the breath, you come back to the breath, you keep coming back to the breath. As long as you notice you're having the thought, really that's a big part of meditation. You're already meditating, you're noticing you're having a thought, and you're like, okay, I'm going back to the breath now. So you're aware. The idea is just not to get attached to that thought. Don't get attached to the story, the narrative, the emotion. Usually with the domestic thoughts, there's some kind of emotion behind it. Even if it is forgetting to get some milk at the shop, there's that feeling, So it's just not getting drawn in. It's like, it's okay, come back to the breath. It's not important. The clarity thoughts, however, if you feel a little bit more secure about not forgetting those little clarity thoughts, it might be nice to have a journal next to you. So you can write them down if that happens. You might well remember it. It might be such a great opening for you that you just, at the end of the meditation, you take it away with you and it's all good. But if you think you might forget it and that could stress out your meditation practice, I must remember that thing, it was so good, I mustn't forget, then have a journal next to you. You can come back into meditation. Don't think that when you get an interruption, that's the end of it. You can just go back and just pick up where you left off. Okay, that's also really important. And then lastly, I really wanted to talk about sounds. So, an example would be the other day, I was lucky enough to be in the park meditating. It's always very nice to meditate around nature, particularly in the summer, because you've got birdsong around you far more. And, anything that's kind of nature-led will really help bring you into the present, because it's a beautiful focus. You're listening to the sound of the birds chirping away, feeling the sun on your face, or dappled light, in the shadows, whatever it might be. But moreover, I'm sitting on this seat in the park, and I was starting to meditate. And on a seat close by were two girls catching up. And they were talking a lot and quite loudly, and I was really getting attached to what they were talking about. I was kind of like listening to them. I didn't really have any particular interest in it. I was just listening. I wanted, I'm hooked into the conversation. And I almost got up to go and move, and I thought, no, I'm going to use this as a challenge. So, thinking about the same idea with thoughts, you just keep coming back to the breath. It's exactly the same with sounds. You can just keep coming back to the breath. So here I am listening to these girls talking. I'm like, no, I'm getting attached to the narrative. That was just like, no, as thoughts come in, go back to the breath. And the more you do that, the more you practice, and it really is a practice. Meditation is a practice. The more you do that, the more you'll find it easier. And you'll start to notice also that you're zoning out of sound around you, which is incredibly liberating. It's wonderful. You start to notice that there were kids playing around you, being really noisy. There was, a vacuum cleaner going on upstairs, or there was whatever the sound might be. And then you are so focused on the breath, or you might be doing a body scan or anything like that we might do today, that you have actually forgotten about the sounds around you. So just in the same way as you can close your eyes and cut off the sight, it's the same with the ears, with the sound. You don't cut them off, obviously, but you're just cutting off the sounds. You're just focusing on something else. It's not like you're not hearing them anymore, but you're focused on something else. That your attention isn't there, if that makes sense. So it's really, where am I drawing my attention? What am I focusing on? That's your question. That's your question. Whether you're meditating or not, actually, what am I focusing on? Where is my attention? If I'm focusing on all the random thoughts that come into my mind, I'm usually focusing on junk, right? And that's during meditation. If I'm getting wrapped up in that junk outside of meditation, that's also where my attention's going. So you're not going to get very far. We can all stay there and in our trash cans, but it's far harder to climb out of that. So yeah, just knowing that what you pay attention to is what's going to grow in your life. So if you pay attention to the bad stuff's going to get worse. If you pay attention to the good stuff, that can only get better. So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So how do we get that? We all want the good stuff. So it really is just tuning into who you are, being more self-aware, and meditation is a wonderful, wonderful start, as is movement. When you start to move your body and become far more aware of how it moves you around your space, whether it's your house, outside, your office, whatever it might be, you're building that self-awareness, and that leads to what you eat. I mean, the whole thing, it's just a beautiful cyclical thing, but we're talking about meditation primarily, and that's what we're focusing on. So when you start to meditate, you will start to build self-awareness. You'll start to notice your self-talk. You'll start to notice how you are with other people, what your talk is like with them. And then you'll also have moments of reflection and think, oh, the way I said that wasn't very good earlier on, right, I'm going to notice that, and next time I'll take a beat. Alrighty, so let's get started with today's meditation. So I want to do kind of what we did last week, actually, very similar to that. It's what I would call mindful meditation, mixed with a kind of more deeper, relaxed sensation of meditation, so that you've got a relaxed, conscious mind, if that makes sense. The consciousness is the kind of the mindfulness part. The conscious, not consciousness. The conscious is a kind of mindfulness part, noticing, be aware, and then the more relaxed is the meditative, really deep meditative place. Okay, where you can often create or get those moments of clarity that kind of come out. They feel like they come out of nowhere. It's a beautiful gift. Okay, don't stress if they don't happen today. I don't get them all the time. It's just every now and then. But it's just you noticing your domestic talk. That's the first thing for you to really be aware of. All right, so just closing your eyes. And make sure you're comfortable as well. So, because I'm always talking first, I always sit in a chair when I'm doing this meditation with you guys. So just finding a really comfy place, and whether that's sitting on the floor with your legs crossed, or on a sofa, or maybe on the floor with the sofa behind you, just kind of supporting your back. Just make sure it's something that you can hold for the next 20 minutes so that you can really just focus, let the mind do the work, not the body. Okay. All right, I just want you to really notice who you are right now. So just noticing your awareness about yourself. How do I feel? Do I feel relaxed? Do I feel agitated? Do I just want to get this thing done and dusted? Or do I feel like I've got all the time in the world? What's my breath doing? It might be fast, it might be slow, it could be deep, it could be short. And I wonder if I'm breathing all the way into my diaphragm, or if I'm just breathing in the upper chest, and how can I change if I am just breathing into the upper chest? What sounds can I hear around my space? And noticing if they are local sounds, i.e. in your room, or even in your body. So it could be that you've got a sense of your heartbeat. You might not hear it, but you might have a sense of it. Or it could be the breath coming in and out of your body, out of your mouth or your nose. It could be a clock ticking. It could be the slight buzz of your laptop. Or it might be a more less local sound. It might be more ambient sound. It could be the distant traffic. It could be bird song. It could be somebody sweeping their front porch. Neighbors. Just noticing. What can I hear? And also, while I was noticing the sounds, was I aware of my breath? Was I just fully fixed on the sounds? And just noticing if you can feel your rib cage slightly expanding on your in-breath. Don't do anything to change your breath. I just want to see if you can notice that. If you're breathing very subtly, you might not even feel the chest expanding. And that's also fine. You're just noticing. There's no judgment here. It's just really about being aware of you, how you are right now. And then depending on how you're sitting, we're just going to do a little scan through your body. And every time I mention a part of your body, I just want you to think about relaxing it even more. So start off with your right heel, your right big toe, your ankle, your right calf, your right knee, all the muscles above it, below it, inside the kneecap, your right hip, your right elbow, your right wrist, your right thumb, your little finger, right shoulder blade, your right shoulder, the back of your neck, your left heel, your left big toe, your left ankle, your left calf, your left knee, the muscles above the kneecap, below the kneecap, inside the kneecap, softening. your left hip, your left elbow, your left wrist, your left thumb, your little finger, your left shoulder blade, your left shoulder, the very bottom of your spine, your sacrum. See if you can travel all the way up the vertebra, all the way up your spine, slowly moving up there until you get to your neck, right to the top of the vertebra. And then trace over the skin of your head, your scalp, all the way up to the crown of your head. Your whole body, just relaxing here. Now just noticing your breath, bring your attention to your breath. This is like one of those little spaces between, just a little moment of nothingness, no conscious breathing, just regular breathing, how you were doing naturally without even thinking about it. A little moment of reflection here right now is when you're doing your body scan, did you have the same awareness of the sounds outside? Probably not. You'd already brought your awareness somewhere else. That's your more meditative state, being aware of the present moment. And now we're going to keep that awareness by breathing in and out for an even number. And I want this number to be 6. The speed of it is up to you. But see if you can breathe in for a count of 6 and then out for a count of 6. And make sure you can keep it even. So even though the numbers might seem even, does your breath feel even, or are you stopping the out breath at 6 without having emptied the breath? Yeah, so you've got to try and work out how much to breathe in so that you have the same breathing out for your number 6. So whenever you're ready, starting to breathe in. And to start with, try and fill yourself up with the in-breath. So really expanding through the chest. And feel that breath filling the belly as well. And then all the way back out. Your 6. Your 6 might be slow or it might be fast, depending on how big a breath you take. So just notice that that might change the speed of the 6, depending on the size of the breath. Keeping it really even on both sides. You've done a few of the really bigger breaths. Let the breath just soften, but keep the count. So now you might notice that you might find the 6s are a bit quicker because your breath is less, because you're not having to expand the breath so much. You're just going nice and soft again. Keeping both sides even, just relaxing the breath. Still counting the 6 in and out. And if you find you have to take a deeper breath again, take it, counting the 6. See how that 6 extends itself. And then keep the same length on the out breath. Coming back down the other side. Yeah, and then just don't worry about the counting, just letting the counting go. Just breathing naturally and just noticing it again, just really being conscious of how your very subtle breath is making the rest of the body feel nice and relaxed, hopefully. And here we are, there's another little kind of space between. This is just this little vacuous space of nothingness. Just surrender. Anytime a thought comes in or you hear a sound, just come back to that feeling, that softness, noticing your breath. And then we're going to change the count. We're going to make it a 4-2-4. So in other words, you'll be breathing in for a count of 4 and holding the breath for a count of 2 and then out again for a count of 4. And you've already experienced that depending on your breath will determine the speed of your counting. So that might take a couple of goes, getting it nice and even on both sides. But whenever you're ready, so you're going to breathe in for 4. Hold that breath at the top for 2. And then out again for 4. It can be as long or as short as you like. Any random thoughts that come into your mind or distracting sounds, just come back to that counting. after your last one of those, just letting it go. Let the counting go, and here you are, you're back again in this little space between, this little, almost like suspension, just allowing yourself just kind of float in this little nothingness right here. No thoughts, no conscious breathing, just stillness. A relaxed breath. Being aware of how that relaxed breath is, if it's short, shallow, or deeper. And then I'm going to bring that 4-2 back, 4-2-4 back again. But this time, I want you to bring your awareness to your rib cage. So you can actually physically push your ribs out to the sides when you breathe in, even if you're not taking a super deep breath. So when you're breathing in, I want you to feel the ribs coming apart. That's creating space for the lungs. So when you breathe in, you feel the chest coming out to the side. So you'll be counting in for 4, feeling the chest expanding on that count. And then when you hold it for 2 at the top, you feel the rib cage suspended in space, just for 2 beats, and then out again, and then you feel the rib cage coming back into the center again. So whenever you're ready, you'll be breathing in. Quite a full breath to start with, feeling the chest expand, holding that expansion, and then letting it come back in. A little bit like imagining somebody playing an accordion, taking it out to the side and then going back to the center again. So when you're ready, off you go. Take a nice deep inhale, feeling the ribs part. Holding it for a couple of beats and letting it go. So you can feel this flow, this motion as you're counting. And also feeling that little bit of suspension where nothing happens. It's just like your life is on pause. And letting it go, back down again. Just keep that going so you can feel your body moving, your chest moving with your breath. If you want to get creative, you can imagine your rib cage as a pair of wings. So every inhale, you're lifting the wings up. Exhale, letting them go. And just seeing if you can do this really nice kind of gentle fly. If that's too much, you can always just stick to the chest, just feeling that at the local level. Or you can just expand into the wings if you feel that way. If you're taking really deep breaths, just let those soften a little bit. They don't have to be so deep anymore. Just allow them to kind of soften, to calm down a little bit. And you can still have the same movement. It's just a very gentle movement of the chest or the wings as you're breathing in and out. These little movements. And then you find that you slow down the breath so much, you just sort of come to a little bit of a stop with the chest. The chest just settles. The breath just settles. And again, you've got this lovely little suspension where you're just in this little kind of field of nothing, just suspending yourself. No conscious breath, just your breath doing its natural, miraculous thing on its own. And then just drawing your attention to the back of your eyelids. Seeing what comes up there. So quite often when we look at the back of the eyelids, depending on how light your space is, you might be by a window. If you're lucky enough to have the sun in your window, the light will be slightly brighter. If you're in a darker space, you can still bring light into your eyelids. It's quite interesting, the colors might be different. But whatever you can see behind your eyelids, even if it's just black velvet, but whatever you can see, just trying to focus on what it is that's right there. So quite often, it's a little bit like a lava lamp, one of those lamps that has the colors, the blobs kind of moving around. Or it might just be a couple of shades of a certain color with maybe some lines of black. Whatever it might be, just trying to keep that image at the back of your eyelids. So something that you are actually seeing as opposed to imagining. You can actually see different shapes and color through your eyelids with your eyes shut. And kind of move around, just be shapeless forms. And just seeing how long you can keep your attention there and allow them to change, just like a lava lamp changes. Allow these shapes to shift or even change color, but just be an observer of that. Any random thoughts that come in, just come back to what you can see behind your eyelids. If you find that you're focusing too hard, you might feel it actually in your brow if you're focusing too hard on trying to keep an image. Let your eyes fall. It'll feel like your eyes are just falling if you let go of that strain. And you're kind of allowing your eyes just to drop a bit. You might be looking down a bit with your eyes closed. Just relax your eyes, soften them. And it'll probably be a slightly different image. Shape, color. Being okay with that. And then just starting to notice the sounds again around you. You can keep staring at the back of the eyelids while you're doing that if you like. You can bring a little bit of the two worlds together. So the sounds that you can hear are happening, in reality, in real time. But if you're still in a nice relaxed space, looking at behind your eyelids, focusing on the sounds as well will kind of bring the two together. It's a little bit like staying relaxed in the present state, if that makes sense. That's the whole idea of this mindfulness and meditation coming together. So giving that really nice, relaxed sense of self, but tuning more into the sounds around you now. And also noticing your body, how it's sitting, coming back into your body. Noticing if your shoulders are nice and relaxed away from your ears. Your breath, if it's nice and soft, or maybe it's not. Doesn't matter either way. You're just being aware. And slowly bringing yourself back into the world. Very gently opening your eyes. So it'll start like a low gaze. And feel like you're sweeping your eyelids along the floor to open them to a low gaze. You're slowly letting the light come back in to your eyes. Yeah, and then just taking some nice deep breaths to kind of energize yourself. Knowing an in-breath is an energizing breath, so you can kind of use that to come back. So nice back into your space, and knowing that you can keep that really nice sense of calm throughout the day. You can have both. Yeah. All right, if you feel nice and relaxed, you might want to just stay here meditating. I'm going to finish the video now, but if you want to, feel free. Failing that, I will see you guys next week. Enjoy. I hope you enjoy your practices. Just keep them nice and regular. You'll be fine. All right, see you next